I'm saved. I'm saved
Good
from having to
morning.
run the meeting.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Apologies for my delay. I had a little technical glitch here, but I am here now. So we will begin the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being on this morning. Um, First and foremost, welcome Councilmember Bergan and Councilmember Lawson. Do we have any changes, additions, amendments, or corrections to last month's minutes?
I don't.
Okay, seeing none, we'll just move right on then. Yay! Um, I am still having some technical issues, so please excuse me whilst I get myself together here. Come on, come on. You know, when technology works, it's great, and when it doesn't, it just doesn't. And
Keep
that
it
is
going.
me today.
I think
And I
Carly's up first on
and I
traffic
do
signal.
believe Carly is up on the signal track. Yes, please, Carly, would you please
Okay.
go on?
Yes, I have two IGAs. So I will start with the first one now. I'll probably have some technical issues too, just to make you feel better, Councilmember Hancock. It's not my fault or anything. Let's see. Okay. Sharing screens. Looks like hopefully everybody can see my screen now. So this is the first of two IGAs that I have today. This IGA is between CDOT and Aurora for a traffic signal equipment upgrade project. So just a little bit of background. This is for a grant project, and we've brought the grant to TAPS a couple times over the last few years. So this is one of 3 grants that we applied for through the Denver Regional Council of Governments Regional Transportation Operations and Technology Set-Aside Program. So this is federal funding through DRCOG. It's administered by CDOT. So this IGA is for CDOT to administer the funds. And we applied for 3 different projects for traffic items, and we received all 3, which is great news. So this IGA is for one of those 3. The other ones will probably come later this year. So this is a summary of our 3 applications. One of them is for communications infrastructure. The next was for a traffic management center. And this IGA is for our application. Our third application was which was for traffic signal equipment upgrades. This has a federal amount of $1 million, and the local match is 0. So this is a really great opportunity for us to upgrade some of our aging equipment using those federal funds. Yeah, so for traffic signal equipment upgrades, we selected 42 different locations to upgrade our detection to a newer type of detection that detects different types of vehicles, different modes like bicycle movements as well, and gives us a lot of different data and metrics. So this is a screenshot just from what we see on our end with this type of detection. And then this grant also includes 42 power supplies. So at each signal, we like to have a power supply for backup power if power goes out. So this is 42 of those as well. The federal funding will be used to procure the hardware, and our internal staff will phase in the installations to save us a bit of money on contractor work. So this grant is for 42 detection units and 42 power supplies. So that was pretty short. My question for you all is, do you support moving the resolution for this IGA forward to the next study session and then full council? And any questions as well?
Yes. Any questions, Councilmember Bergan or Councilmember Lawson? Yes, Councilmember Bergan.
You said 42 locations. Did you determine those on like maybe more accidents or
So we
what was the
actually,
criteria?
yeah, that's a good question. I think we included a map as a backup of the locations. So the locations are mostly determined based on which corridors were eligible. So for DRCOG grants, we're only allowed to apply for certain regional corridors, but it does tend to be our higher volume, higher crash locations because it's on all of our major roads. So we did our major roads that were eligible, and then we cross-checked it against where we already have these units in place. So we already have about 110 of them in the field. So we tried to skip those and fill in the gaps where we were eligible for funding, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Councilmember Lawson, any questions?
Yeah, I just have a question, Carly. So this is great. Is there going to be any plan? And I sit on DRCOG, so I could probably, when we have our next meeting and we talk about things, is there some type of regional coordination that we can do a little bit on the Parker Road? I know we're doing the Parker Road improvements because I sit on that committee. But I was just wondering, the crash the crash is pretty bad. You know, Parker Road is not a really safe corridor. Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of speed, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of, you know, the weaving and all of that. Is there going to be some type of thing that the city can coordinate more with that effort on Parker Road? 'Cause
So
it's
there,
a multi-jurisdictional coordination,
yeah,
of
Right.
course. So,
there's a lot of multi-jurisdictional coordination, like you said. I know that the county recently was involved in a study for part of Parker Road, but not the whole thing to make some improvements.
okay,
But we also actually have a safety action plan coming up, which includes all of
okay,
Aurora. And that was actually funded by DRCOG as well. But the Adams County is the main
okay,
agency leading the grant. I'll bring forward updates probably next year on that. We're kicking it off in the next couple months. But I think the safety action
okay,
plan will be great for that because we'll have a list of projects for future funding as well as the Parker
okay,
Quincy Smoky Hill project that you already know. You already know about that, and we have some other projects. Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
With that said, what is your good pleasure, committee members? Shall we move this forward?
Yes.
Unanimous. Awesome,
Well,
Carly. Great job.
Yay. Thank
we
you.
like getting free money.
Yes, I'm all about the free money. You know, the zero. I like the zero. That is good.
Same.
So
Agreed.
moving on to item 4B, consideration to approve the resolution for the fiber sharing.
Yes, thank you. This is me again. This is another IGA. And so this IGA is to share fiber with CDOT. And this IGA doesn't include any money changing hands. It'll set us up for a future IGA for a construction project, but I'll explain a little bit more about that. So we recently presented the Fiber Master Plan to TAPS a couple months ago. And so the Fiber Master Plan was a citywide effort. It heavily involved Public Works, IT, and water. And throughout that process, we really set goals and strategies for deploying fiber in the city to support city needs. And so through that effort, we did a lot of coordination with external stakeholders because it's a lot of times more economical to do projects together or to share resources rather than all of us doing our own projects in the same areas. So as part of the coordination for the Fiber Master Plan project, we identified a high priority sharing opportunity with CDOT. CDOT already has fiber along I-225 and along I-70. And the city operates and maintains the signals along the interchanges. So this was a pretty desirable route for us. So we've been in communication with CDOT for a couple years trying to work through the details on this. And so this green route on this graphic shows where CDOT's fiber is. And so after a lot of coordination with CDOT, this IGA brings forward really just the sharing language to set us up for future more specific agreements to share resources. It's really about sharing resources in general with our hopes to use it for fiber and to do task orders for related to this main task order. It's a little confusing, and if you've looked at the IGA, it's really, really long and has a lot of technical language in it as well. But this IGA doesn't involve any money changing hands, and it's really just to set up the parameters for us to share fiber with CDOT. And they've already tentatively agreed to giving us strands along this route. And we're going to give strands in exchange for other services. So we're going to be getting these strands for $0 as well, which is really exciting because fiber is insanely expensive, as you probably saw in our master plan a couple months ago. So again, this doesn't involve any funding. This is just an agreement of how we're going to share resources. And one of the 3 grants I mentioned in this last IGA is for communications infrastructure upgrades. So that grant will actually give us construction money to tie into this fiber. So there I'll have a separate IGA. I'm going to bring forward a lot of IGAs this year, I guess. So so the question for you is if you support moving this resolution for the IGA forward to the next available study session and then full council meeting. And any questions, of course, as well.
Any questions, members? Nope. We're all in agreement with moving this forward. I love
Thank
these
you.
things that don't cost us money. I am so here for it. It's great. Up next is 4C, Connecting Aurora, the citywide multimodal transportation study. I'm really excited about the presentation on this one.
Morning, Chair Hancock and member of the committee. And so this is going to be our Connecting Aurora update number 4. So we're going to be providing additional updates on our extensive public engagement efforts and what we heard from the public. And also we're going to be presenting our draft vision, mission, goals, and bedrock practices developed mainly in the last month. So with that, we'll have our consultant project manager, Keith Borschein, to make the presentation.
Good morning, council members. It's great to be here again and great to see everybody bright and early. I'm also on my second cup of coffee, not feeling it yet, but I'm getting there. There are quite a few slides in this presentation, and in interest of time, I'm going to breeze through them pretty quickly, but feel free to ask to go back to any at the conclusion if there's questions as we go through it. But just want to make sure that we stay on time, and so for that reason, I'll be kind of going fast. Here, everybody can see my screen, right? Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to give just a brief update on the project status. Huiliang mentioned the engagement update, and then draft vision, mission, and goals. And then we do have just a slide on what our major next steps are for the project heading into the summer. So project status, we are, I would say, about 85%, 90% done with our existing conditions analysis. That's a lot of technical work that has been going on kind of in the background from the technical team. So that's going to be wrapped up here relatively soon. We have completed our first round of public engagement, and as I mentioned, we have the draft vision, mission, and goals that we hope to present to council next month. So here's that really informative yet complex flowchart. Kind of want to focus on the top right corner here for where we are. We are in the synthesize phase. We completed the planning charrette last month, excuse me, and then also the vision workshop. And that's why we're here today, to present the results of all of that. After that, we will move into what we call scenario development and testing. So that's this box here. And that's where we look into some of the possible futures for the city of Aurora and its transportation futures. So that's our big next step moving into the summer. Okay, on the engagement update. So great engagement first round. We held 4 open houses. We also had the online open house. We had over 5,000 visitors to the online open house, and of those, 1,200, a little over 1,200 people filled out a survey. We also had an online map where we had almost 300 comments left on the online map, and we'll get into some of what those comments were about. And then we also did attend some community events and pop-ups. So there's some of the numbers. Who did we hear from? We got a really great mix of folks from all over the city. So each of these pins represents a zip code where somebody filled out a survey. So that's either where they work or live. Individuals of all ages, from students all the way up to our senior population, and individuals and families of varying backgrounds. So great feedback. I don't want to go into each of the bullet points here, but this is just a quick summary, or an in-depth summary, I should say, of all the various efforts that we made to reach out to people. So this is kind of our, tracking our progress towards, how hard did we work to actually reach people. So we had many social media posts, great media coverage, newsletters and bill inserts, postcards, community events. We did also do quite a bit of flyering at some transit stations and libraries, signage throughout the city, and then lots of great support from our stakeholder groups. So what did we hear? First time participation by about 1/3 of the survey respondents. So that's the first time that they've interacted with the city on an effort like this. Many of the open house attendants were extremely pleased and appreciative for the opportunity to provide their feedback. And just a quick summary of how people feel when they're, or how safe people feel. We see that in a vehicle, people feel somewhat safe, but kind of outside a vehicle, somewhat unsafe. So no surprise there. We did ask people to describe in one word the transportation system they want to see, and the big winner is safety. As we've heard already this morning, that's a big focus for everybody. Safety is a key focus for not just this plan, but as Carly mentioned, the Adams County Safety Action Plan that's coming up as well. The comment map, I want to highlight three big comment areas. One was at the Anschutz campus. We received 55 comments in that area. A second was the Community College of Aurora, where we received almost 80 comments. And then the third one, Councilmember Lawson, you just mentioned Parker Road. So that is also a key comment area for the public as well. And you can see that it's a good mix of what people are concerned about as far as biking, driving, walking, etc. At the pop-ups, we did go to 4 pop-up events, one at the Community College of Aurora, one at Anschutz, one at the Metro Center Station, Transit Station, and then one at the Aurora Reservoir. At those pop-ups, we had a board where people could put a sticky note on how they currently travel to the location that they were at, and most people drive. And then we also had a sticky board that said, what kind of improvements do you want to see? And most people highlighted improvements to transit and biking. What we heard overall on the vehicle side, most people drive once or twice a week. Most vehicle trips are typically half hour to 1 hour, so pretty long, actually, when you think about it. Most important factors when traveling by car are comfort, convenience, and speed. Most travel alone, but sometimes with others depending on the type of trip. So what we typically see is commuters are often alone, but when you're making a different kind of trip, a shopping trip, or visiting friends or family, typically you might carpool. Driving challenges, poorly maintained roads, sitting in traffic, and long waits at intersections. So no major surprises there. What we heard about walking. So we asked people what prevents them from walking, and the big winner here was the street crossings. So, you know, our major arterials are viewed as barriers, and crossing those streets is viewed as unsafe and uncomfortable. And that's what prevents people from walking most. The other thing is, you know, or the destinations people want to get to aren't necessarily close from where they're starting their trip. So that just that overall distance to travel is a barrier to walking as well. We did also hear a little bit about gaps in the sidewalk network, which is
Keith,
part
you
of that.
probably can't see raised hands, but Councilmember Bergan
Oh.
raised her hand. So I think she has a question on the slide. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Yeah, just if you go back one slide,
Oh, sure.
you this is a big surprise to me. Most people drive once or twice a week. And I find that strange because most of our people don't work in the same city. So I mean, I drive every single day, multiple times a day. As do a lot of people I know.
I think this should say at least once or twice a week. I would say that
okay.
most people probably drive it once or twice a day.
Yeah, okay.
But let me go back to the data and check on that.
Okay, all right.
But yeah,
And
that's a great comment.
Was that feedback only from the pop-ups or was that from just in general? Maybe that made a difference.
This is in general. So
Okay.
the pop-up slide was the other one. This is now kind of the whole thing, everything we heard in all the surveys.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Great clarification. Okay, on this back to the walking.
Another hand, I think, from Councilmember Lawson. Is that right?
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Lawson.
So it's very, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt on this, but I'm very astounded by the 3 where it says comfort, convenience. I'm just surprised that comfort would be number 1. It seems like convenience because you're trying to navigate you know, if there's any kind of barriers, like if there's road construction. So that's very interesting, that comfort. What does that actually mean? Comfort in what? Your car? What does that mean? I'm really astounded by that being number one, because to me it's convenience. It's how I can navigate to get where I'm going. And sometimes there's barriers, traffic, construction, whatever. And then I'm just really does that mean comfort in your car? Or what does that mean?
Yeah, it's hard to determine how people interpret a survey question.
Okay.
It was provided as an option and people chose it.
Okay.
So I'm not totally sure what everybody thinks of when they think of comfort in their car. I
But
do
is it
think,
like, do you mean like in the scale of this project, why was that one of the options, comfort? I'm just trying to understand. I can't grasp that.
Because it should be safety.
Is that, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to understand, why was that one of the options? And I'm not questioning, I just find it interesting that that was even one of the options, because usually it's, you know, safety, convenience. I don't know about the speed, but you know, if you have to get where you're going, but why would that be one of the options in this project of comfort? Because it's not really defined.
I think we chose a lot of different adjectives to try to capture like how different people feel. And to me, comfort is also like, if I feel comfortable in my car, it's because I have air conditioning. On days like yesterday when it's almost 100 degrees, like, am I going to bike somewhere or walk somewhere? Like, I think a lot of people choose that because it's more comfortable. You're not near other people, but it's really how people identify with each word too. So, and sometimes we're surprised about survey results also. You know, we maybe go in expecting something to be the top and it isn't. So we try to give people, I think, different options with surveys,
Okay,
but
it just
it's a
seems
little
like it's
nuanced.
interesting, because I would put like safety, comfort. Maybe you're in a place where you don't feel as safe, but you're trying to navigate. That's just a very interesting concept. So thank you
Yeah.
for addressing it.
sure. And while we're here on the speed comment, speed is really interesting. People want to get where they're going quickly, right? So they want to travel at a speed that allows them to do so. And it's the other side of the coin is, you know, there's quite a bit of feedback in our surveys and just talking to folks that speeding is a real issue. So speed is kind of this double-edged sword. We want appropriate speeds for our streets and we want it to be efficient, but we want to have streets that don't allow people or discourage people from speeding. So it's kind of that double-edged sword. So I just wanted to point that out while we're here. Okay. On the sidewalk improvements front, people highlighted traffic calming. So, you know, we heard actually a few folks say that they like the traffic calming program that the city is running and want to see more of that. New sidewalks to fill those gaps that we highlighted, and then providing additional shade for our sidewalks throughout the city were the key improvements. On the biking front, similar results on what prevents people from biking, street crossings, gaps in the bikeway network, and the poorly maintained bikeways was highlighted as well. And when I think of poorly maintained for bikeways, it's really interesting when people are on their bike. A rough road feels even rougher than it does when you're in your car, right? So it may not actually be all that poorly maintained, but if there's just a little bit of roughness, it really impacts a bicyclist. On the bikeway improvements side, separation between bikes and vehicles, so physical separation was highlighted as a desired improvement. Traffic calming again popped up, and expanding that overall bicycle network to connect to more places throughout the city. On the transit side, most people don't use public transit due to unavailable services where people need it. So the transit does not connect them to where they need to go. Of those that do take transit, they do it because of health or legal reasons. Legal meaning, you know, maybe they can't drive, they don't have a license for some reason, either too old or some other reason, too young or too old or some other reason. Transit's generally more affordable for people and it's better for the environment. Those were the major reasons people that do take transit choose to do so. On the improvement side, big ticket winner here was security. So people do not feel safe on transit or waiting for transit at the bus stops. The other ones here are more frequent service and more reliable transit operations. On freight, the top freight concerns were wear and tear on the road, grade separated railroad crossings, so making those railroad crossings safer and more efficient, safety, and then curbside loading and unloading, you know, whether it's in your neighborhood or along a commercial street. Those were the big ticket winners for the freight concerns. On urban design, we presented images that show different ways to address urban design in cities, and asked people to vote for those that they liked the most. And the top three were bus stop amenities and multimodal connections, shared streets and event spaces. So being able to close a street for a block party or some other kind of event. Green gutters along protected bike facilities. So this, would be kind of a combination of protecting bicycle facilities and providing some green infrastructure, whether it's in the form of just plantings or additional trees, but having some additional green in the roadway. Okay, so overall summary of the key issues heard. Personal and transportation safety is a big focus. Driving is generally viewed as relatively safe, but hampered by bottlenecks throughout the city. So making that more efficient. Walking and biking is unsafe, and everything is too far away, especially considering the gaps in those walking and biking networks. Transit feels unsafe to people and is generally viewed as too slow with limited services. So those are the big challenges facing the city according to the public engagement so far. So on engagement next steps, we are working with city staff to attend various community events throughout the summer. So we have a very long list of community events that we are prioritizing, and city staff will be leading the charge in attending those events and gathering additional input throughout the summer. Great way to meet people where they are. That's one of the key outcomes of milestone 1 was that folks said, this is great, but we're going to be able to see a lot more people if you just come out to, these events that we're already hosting and there's a lot of people at. So that's another big takeaway here, is that we will apply those lessons learned for milestone 2, which is planned for this fall. So we will be presenting vision and goals and some of the scenario testing that we're doing and during that milestone 2 engagement effort in the fall. So that's the engagement update. Now I'd like to walk you all through the vision, mission, and goals, and really kind of gather your feedback on what we have determined for those goals. So I want to just walk through what our framework is here. We're starting at the top with the vision, and then we work our way down to mission and goals. And we drew an orange line here to say this is where we're at. Our next steps will be developing objectives and strategies to achieve those goals. So the vision is the unique future state we hope to create, how the public will be better off because of this plan. Mission, what are we doing, for whom, and why? The purpose of the plan. Goals are broad qualitative statements regarding what you're trying to achieve, and they bring more definition to the vision. Objectives are specific, time-limited, quantifiable, desired achievements in support of those goals. And then strategies are the actions we'll be taking, including projects, policies, et cetera, et cetera. So overall, who did we talk to? Well, we talked to the council members. We nearly reached all of the council members. So really good input from council members. We also talked to the city manager's office and department directors. So you can see the list of folks that we reached there. And then we also did hold a series of one-on-one interviews with other key staff within public works, planning, and development services. Other activities included the planning charrette, where we had about 75 participants. Oh, yes, Councilmember Bergan.
Sorry, can you go back on that
Sure.
last slide? What about, I see fire chief, where's police? Because they deal a lot with traffic.
Yes, we did attempt to talk to the police department, and we were unsuccessful in getting that scheduled. I do think, Carly, we still have that on our list of follow-up items that we want to
Yeah,
still
we do.
try to schedule. So
Okay, I
that
mean,
is a
they're
goal.
pretty integral in
Yeah,
getting feedback.
totally agree.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. The planning charrette, I mentioned we had about 75 participants. And then we also then hosted a vision, mission, goals, and objectives workshop that was focused just on city staff and had about 35 city staff members there. And then we also gathered feedback from the project management team in our May meeting and had additional meetings throughout the month of May. That all culminated in the following transportation vision. And I'll just read it aloud. Aurora safely connects all people to our places for a healthy, sustainable, and economically strong community. We also have a mission, draft mission. Again, how do we plan to achieve our vision? The city of Aurora will provide a complete transportation system to meet the needs of all people. The city will engage the public in the delivery of plans, programs, policies, standards, and projects. So that's kind of how the city's going to go about achieving the goals of this plan. We also realized that we wanted to highlight some bedrock practices that we want to have front and center as we go through this plan and during the delivery of the recommendations from the plan. So these bedrock practices define the way the city plans to do business while implementing the plan. As new plans, programs, policies, standards, and projects are developed, city staff commit to using these practices as a foundation for successful implementation. A focus on people, engage, collaborate, be inclusive, modernize, innovate, and be context sensitive. And then this last slide here on the goals lists all of the transportation focused goals for this plan. Again, these support the vision and mission and provide more specific guidance on what the city plans to achieve. So without reading each of these, I just want to read the bold parts here. We have a safe goal, reliable, convenient, connected, sustainable, economically strong, healthy, authentic, equitable, and integrated. So those are the 10 goals that came out of this process and that we will work to achieve through implementing this plan over the next 20 years. So our next steps, we will finalize the state of the system analysis and report, develop transportation information system and performance tracking framework. I mentioned the summer engagement activities. We want to finalize the vision, mission, goals, and objectives after presenting to City Council. And then later this summer, we will continue our work on the future scenario evaluation and network development. Those are our big next steps. Any further questions? And I'm happy to go back to the goals or vision and mission as well. Councilmember Bergan.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Just on wondering if we get a lot of data, Carly gets a lot of data on the traffic calming program. So are you looking at maybe taking a look at some commonalities that Carly sees in the applications? Because I think there's probably a wealth of information in there. I know a lot of people want the roundabouts and that type of thing. So just curious.
The short answer is yes. We are working to identify all of that kind of technical data that is available. We haven't necessarily dug deep into the traffic calming, but I really like that idea, and I'll work with Carly to do so and
Thank you.
incorporate that into the state of the system report. Councilmember Hancock?
Well, when looking at transportation all over the city, what is the role and how are we going to coordinate with RTD to expand the transportation access to say Ward 6? One critical one was going up. Yeah, we're coming your way, Françoise.
We don't want it.
Coming up, like working up. If you're going up Hampton or Quincy, it stops before you get to 470. So if somebody's working over there in the Southlands, they can't get there if they're taking the bus, or unless it would take them several hours to do that. So how are we working on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it gets into the heart of the transit planning efforts that we're just now kicking off. So one of the things that the scenario evaluation phase is going to do is going to allow us to identify what levers we can pull that will have an impact on transit availability, transit usage, transit convenience. Now, these are all kind of, hypotheticals at this time. And it's the point of the scenario evaluation is to allow us to see what pulling each of those levers is going to result in. And then that will allow us to develop those strategies and then work with RTD to try to implement those. One of the things we're realizing though is, and RTD will tell you this, is they want to be a regional transportation district, which means they're providing public transportation services that allow people who live in Aurora to get across the region. And they are really trying not to focus so much on local services, which is, maybe something that we need to have a wider region-wide conversation about. But it leaves this gap that needs to be filled, but they're unable to fill it because of their fiscal constraints. So that's the big problem facing us right now, is just these fiscal constraints, and how do we address those fiscal constraints? And whether that means the city of Aurora steps up to provide further public transportation services, we're exploring that option, or maybe it's how can we be more efficient with the funds that we have? So those are all the kinds of levers that we're looking to pull. So I don't have a great answer at this point, but that's what the next year and a half is we're hoping to arrive at some really great recommendations for how we can make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and Laura, go ahead.
Thanks, Keith. Chair Hancock, if I can add to that response. So RTD is very much at the table on this. And just 2 weeks ago, we staff have a regular coordination meeting with RTD and provide an update on connecting Aurora. And they're very interested in this work and understanding the direction. So now that we're really getting into the intricate details, as Keith explained with some of the technical analysis, we are going to ensure that they're at the table with us so that they can continue to evaluate their regional operating plans and what that looks like for service provision in alignment with our planning efforts.
And I knew that when they were partners at the pop-up events and the other events. And I just want to, make sure that it stays top of mind that, if we want people to utilize the services, it has to be convenient, it has to be accessible, it has to be safe. And those three things to me are pivotal to making sure that when people use the public transportation, I, for one, rode the train, the bus, and rode a bike for 2 years because I did not have a car. And this was recently. So it wasn't, for me, it was just challenging, living in Aurora, working in Inglewood, getting back and forth. It would take an hour and a half each way. And so it's like, okay, how can we make this more accessible to people? And to your point, Keith, about your RTD wanting to be more city to city as to, less inner city kind of transport, that we really have to think of some innovative solutions as to how that's going to occur.
Yep. Yeah, and Laura, thank you for that reminder. We actually have a technical advisory committee meeting this afternoon. RTD is part of that committee, as well as CDOT and Dr. Cog. So they are involved throughout the process. We meet with that technical advisory committee every 2 months.
Okay. Councilmember Lawson.
Yes, I just had a question. So, I find it interesting with RTD. I sat on the RTD Reimagine Committee for almost 4 years. And then we're still talking about this work. So I would just be interested, just on a side note, if you could let me know, where did that work go? Because there was a lot of work from a lot of regional partners that served on that committee with a lot of recommendations on the regionality of transit. And it just seems like we're kind of like, what I'm kind of getting from this conversation is you're having conversations, but there was a lot of work that was done with that committee, because I served on that committee. A lot of time to get a plan to talk about the regionality, and it seems like that's just not even it's just sitting on a shelf somewhere, which is kind of disappointing to me, because there was a lot of work from a lot of regional partners on that. And from what you're telling me, it's like the work, you're having these conversations of how we can develop, when some of the ideas were within that committee. So that's just a comment.
No, it's a
And
really
a little
important comment.
disappointing, actually, for me,
Well,
especially serving on that committee.
hopefully I can alleviate some of your disappointment.
Okay.
So RTD through Reimagine identified what they call a system optimization plan, which is really their kind of short-term reimagining of the network. And the goal of the system optimization plan was is to use the resources that RTD has in a more efficient manner. So through that process, they and you and others identified corridors that should have more service, and corridors that maybe should have less service, and really focus on the strengths of the system. So Havana, for example, is a really strong corridor that in the system optimization plan was identified to receive more service throughout the course of the day. They are in the process of implementing that system optimization plan. It's taking them a few years, but it is happening slowly over time. With each new service update, they implement more and more of those changes. So that is happening. So that's a really good thing that came out of Reimagine. The other thing that happened in Reimagine was this kind of visioning for what the wider future network should look like. And that is still live. They still want to accomplish that, but they don't have the funding to do it. So the system optimization plan is what they can actually pay for. And then that kind of wider vision for a more, widespread regional BRT network, they need to go find funding. They and us, all of us who work in this field, need to go find additional funding to make that wider regional network happen. So it is on a shelf, but they pull it off the shelf when they go and try to find funding.
Chair Hancock, can I just do a follow-up before Councilmember Bergan? And I understand that, and I understand what the planning was, but there were some ideas about the regionality within that committee. Like I said, I served on that committee, and there was a regional approach of how transit would look. And it seems like we're reinventing the wheel when there were some good ideas there. So I'm not talking about the funding piece, but there was a long-term type of scope. And I'm not saying all the ideas were going to, because of funding, but I'm looking at the ideas that were some of the points that were made within that committee from a regional perspective. So I'm not talking about the funding. I'm talking about the ideas that came from that, looking at the regional approach.
I gotcha. Yeah. And just to maybe, again, try to address that concern, we are building on that. We're not starting from scratch. Our goal is not to start from scratch. We are starting with that system optimization plan network as kind of our future baseline, and the other improvements that were identified in Reimagine as kind of our starting point. And then what can the city of Aurora do to enhance that? And maybe even update some of the recommendations. We should take this chance to review those. But we're definitely not starting from scratch. And I will say one of our sub-consultants on our team, Nelson Nygaard, was one of the chief consultants on the Reimagine RTD project as well. So they're intimately familiar with those recommendations and will be incorporating them as best they can.
Can I go ahead?
Yep. Councilmember Bergan?
No,
Councilmember Berger.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned that the Reimagine was doing this analysis. So on efficiency, and is that was the study that was done to look at ridership per corridor, and because obviously they cut some services. So is that what you're talking about, that they had to look at how many people ride in a certain area, and can they recoup basically their monies if no one's riding in a particular area? Then I mean, it's not efficient.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the system optimization plan
Right.
goal.
Okay.
Yep.
Any more questions? All right, then. Looks like we got our works cut out for us here, guys. It's not an easy fix, but I think we're making some good progress, which is good. Let's move on to item 4D, consideration to approve a resolution for the IGA between the City of Aurora, E470, and Wendler.
Morning. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, kind of get that started. All right, bear with me for a second. Okay. Thank you for your patience on that. Continued patience while I get set up. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Great. All right. Good morning, council members. Thank you for your time. My name is Haley Johansson. I'm the city engineer in the Development Services Department. Today, I'm presenting the proposed intergovernmental agreement with E470 and the Windler, excuse me, Operations Metropolitan District that's going to cover maintenance obligations for the East 48th interchange. This map on the left here is the location East 48th along the E470 corridor. This east-west arterial road connects Piccadilly from the west and the Green Valley Ranch development along with Denver even further west with the city's developing areas to the east of E470, which in this area includes Windler and the Aurora Highlands. This bridge is an overpass across E470 and is required to create connectivity across the corridor. E470 and the city have entered into similar IGAs that define these maintenance responsibilities where our infrastructure overlaps. And this is going to be a three-party agreement where Windler, the Operations Metropolitan District, is going to maintain some enhanced aesthetic features that they would like to have incorporated into this project. So Aurora standards will be used for 48th Avenue, and this road is a 6-lane arterial. The city will maintain generally all the standard roadway items along 48th and typically what we would maintain along an arterial anyway. So that would be pavement maintenance on the road and bridge, pavement markings, lights and the electrical associated with that, snow plowing and sweeping along both the bridge and road, as well as signage. It does exclude signage that E470 needs for their infrastructure. And we will also maintain the traffic signals at these locations once they're warranted to be installed. Windler is going to maintain the decorative elements. So that's going to include some concrete sidewalk and medians, special patterns for those features. the pedestrian bridge rail, concrete pattern and finish on the parapet walls and bridge columns, along with some enhanced landscaping in the interchange area. I do want to highlight that there is one modification in the IGA from what's currently in the system. Windler will be maintaining the weeds and debris along the E470 right-of-way line. And so that will be updated for study session and council meeting before it moves forward. E470 will be responsible for the bridge structure and approach slabs, underdeck and flood lighting, the on and off ramps, some fencing that's associated with right-of-way or the deer fencing, along with 2 water quality ponds and drainage infrastructure that includes 2 30-inch RCPs and a double 10 by 8 foot concrete box culvert. And with that, the question for this committee is, does the Council Policy Committee support the resolution for the IGA between City of Aurora, E470, and the Windler Operations Metropolitan District regarding the operations and maintenance for East 48th Avenue Bridge and overlapping facilities moving forward to the next available study session? And I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Committee, do we have any questions regarding this IGA?
Nope, it went to E470 as well. So.
Oh, okay. So we're a step ahead of the game then. But then we'll recommend we move it forward. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next is 4E Kings Point Way IGA.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the council members, and thank you for your time. I just want to introduce myself, as I don't know that everyone knows me yet. My name is Mark Tamburo, and I'm the manager of street operations. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen this morning. Bear with me here. I'm having some technical difficulty.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that struggles
Exactly.
sometimes.
Exactly. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Looks good, Mark.
Okay. Not cooperating for some reason. So we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the IGA between the town of Parker and the city of Aurora for Kings Point Way, specifically for snow plowing and street sweeping. So in this depiction here, you'll see Kings Point Way running north and south. You'll see that there is a red rectangle box, and that section is subject to the IGA. The blue box is not subject to the IGA. It is south of the Arapahoe-Douglas County line. It is north of Cottonwood Drive. It is east of Parker Road, west of E470. It is a 2-lane collector, and there are turn lanes and bike lanes on this here. So you'll see the Parker boundary in yellow, and you'll see the city of Aurora boundary in blue. So a little bit of a history here. Aurora and Parker entered into an original IGA January 28th of 2019 regarding the design, construction, and maintenance of Kings Point Way. So essentially, the town of Parker had to construct Kings Point Way south of the future Aurora Parkway to meet fire line safety requirements for the development west of Kings Point Way. And essentially, they've been maintaining this up to the point of final acceptance. Parker designed and constructed the project at no cost to the city of Aurora, which is awesome, as I think Councilmember Hancock will be excited about that. Douglas County and the town of Parker entered into a slope easement agreement originally on this. And Aurora and Parker at that time agreed that Parker will be responsible for snow removal and street sweeping for 5 years following the final acceptance. And so Aurora will be responsible for ownership and maintenance responsibilities of everything else following the final acceptance. So the IGA responsibility is fairly simplistic. For Parker, For the next 5 years, they'll be responsible for snow removal and street sweeping, and they're going to go ahead and use all of their policies and procedures for their snow removal. They're going to try to focus on using liquid de-icers and try to minimize the amount of granule de-icing materials just to avoid residue from sanding. And for Aurora, the right-of-way will be conveyed to us. Part of that right-of-way conveyance includes a slope easement agreement, and some aspects of that Aurora will be maintaining is to have a proper site distance and line of sight maintained, as well as lateral support and a proper drainage grade for the roadway. So with that, the question is, does the Council Policy Committee support moving forward the resolution and intergovernmental agreement between the City of Aurora and the Town of Parker for snow removal and street sweeping of Kings Point Way to the next available study session? And of course, any questions you may have.
Questions, Councilmember Bergan?
Yes, thank you. Obviously, our area is anxious to get that road connected with the Prairie Point is what it's called now. So after 5 years, then the city will maintain it? Is that what would do the snow removal?
That is correct. Yep.
So
For
we're
the
just
next
waiting
5
on
years.
construction?
Yep. So upon that final acceptance, street sweeping and snow removal will be done by the Town of Parker, and then Aurora will take it over beyond that. But after final acceptance, all other maintenance responsibilities will be done by the City of Aurora, us here in the street division. So it's
Okay.
just those two maintenance items that will be done by Parker.
Okay, great.
I think
Thank you.
we got a pretty good deal here. I think the way
That
this
works
thing
for
works.
us.
Yeah, I'm like, no money? Yes, I'm here for that. Any
I'm
other
with you.
questions? Then we will move forward to the next study session so that we can get going with this piece. Thank you so much, Mark. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet y'all as well.
With that said, do we have any miscellaneous
here.
matters?
Here, Hancock, sorry, I just have
sorry.
one quick question. We
Uh-huh.
do have a question for the committee for our connecting rural item. And so I might just read that question. Does the committee support and approve staff presenting this information at the next City Council study session? That will be on July 8th.
Yes, we do. We didn't
Thank
answer
you.
that?
Thank
you didn't ask it, so we didn't answer it. Okay. Well, asked and answered, we shall move forward in the next study session.
As soon,
Thank you.
as soon as we stopped, I texted you along. I was like, oh, shoot, we forgot to ask for permission.
We know exactly what we're doing. Well, thank you very much. Yes, we shall move that forward to the next study
Thank
session.
you.
I think that
Thank you.
that the whole council would definitely want to know what we're doing and what the result of that study was. Do we have any miscellaneous matters for consideration? Seeing none,
Chair
Laura.
Hancock.
Yes,
Yes,
Laura.
not for consideration, but more informational. I have 3 items if I could just share with
Absolutely.
the committee. So all good news, good news. So the first, RTD has been offering an RTD partnership program where they're offering funding to local jurisdictions for different transit programs. And recently we put forward an application to expand funding for our Aurora Older Adult Micro Transit Pilot Program. This is a pilot project sponsored by Councilmember Lawson. There's $170,000 in that has been set aside for this, for which we've developed a scope of work in partnership with Councilmember Lawson and our Commission for Older Adults. The opportunity came forward. We put in an application. Our request is total project 850,000. Our funding request from RTD is 680,000. That's will be matched by the 170,000 that we have in the budget. And with this application, we are proposing to service 31,000 people over the age of 65. This last week, it did pass through the Southeast Sub-Regional Council. So there's various steps in the process. So we're excited about that. So a lot of momentum, all in the effort to provide on-demand, point-to-point, and door-to-door transit services for our older adult community. And many thanks to Councilmember Lawson for her continued advocacy in this realm. We're super excited about that.
Nice. Congratulations, Councilmember Lawson. Rock on. Okay. Number
I'm trying to
two.
think about the older adults because I'm aging too.
Yeah, so
I don't
fingers
want to
crossed, good
talk
momentum.
about it.
I'm gonna need some transit. Hopefully in the
Denial is
future.
a river in Egypt. No. All right, Laura, number
All right.
two.
Number two,
How
oh.
long did you have a question?
Yeah, just not a question, just additional information on the engagement effort. Today is a Bike to Work Day. We're actually having several stations are collecting additional comments as we're speaking. So just want to let you know about that.
Okay.
And to add to Hugh Lang, actually, this morning we are celebrating the opening of the new Highline Canal Trail connection over I-70. We're super excited about that. And I just wanted to acknowledge staff Nicole Akeney, Cindy Collab, Jana Krell. A lot of staff were involved in opening that bridge, constructing it. So we're celebrating today on Bike to Work Day, the opening of that this morning. So that'll be open and ready to rock.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, it's been a couple months now that we had shared with City Council that we were working on a roadway impacts map online. That map is done and live and shows active projects we have underway, any roadway impacts as a result of private development, utility projects, or public projects. So we'll be sending a note to council hopefully today announcing the map, providing a link to you all, and please, please, please share that publicly with your constituents. We're super excited about that, and major great job to the Public Works team, Ryan Germeroth, Carly, Nick, Cindy Collab. There's been a lot of hands that have been involved in that, and of course Julie Patterson, who's on as well in our communications team and helping bridge the communications piece of all of this. So a lot of great work on that front. We'll send a note out to council here later today, but super excited that's up and running. And that concludes my information sharing.
Congratulations, and we will share it far and wide because a lot of people want to know what's going on before they hit the road. So this is awesome. Congratulations. Well done, everyone. Very good. Thank you. Let's see. There's one last item. Oh, anticipated topics. Laura, did we have any anticipated topics for next meeting?
Brian, I'll kick it to you.
All right. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, so we do have one item tentatively scheduled for July. Actually kind of ties in with what Laura was just talking about with that road closure map. But basically next month, we're planning to bring an overview of the lane and road closure process so that you all have a better understanding of how we process lane closures, how we coordinate with contractors, and how we try to make sure we don't have parallel roads closed at the same time. So that would be, that's tentatively on the schedule for July.
Fantastic. Yes, I know that is a main pain point for people sometimes because they want to get where they're going. Do we have anything else, any other items that we did not cover that anyone needs to bring up at this time?
I just have a question regarding Smoky Hill Road paving, the mill and overlay. Do we know if that's happening this month? Or not this month, but July? Does anybody know?
Mark, do you have an answer to that? We can follow up with you, Councilmember Bergan, if
I get
you don't
asked
have that handy.
daily.
Oh, Nicholas
I think
Johnson's
Nicholas
on.
is on the
Nicholas.
Hi. So it is on the schedule to get mill and overlaid this year. We are having a late start due to some issues with the concrete appropriates. So we want to do this right so that it lasts for a long time.
Yeah.
So I can't guarantee it's going to be done in July, but it is going to happen here pretty soon. It's one of the earlier roads that we're going to be milling and overlaying this year.
Okay, that's great because it is really bad.
Yes. In fact, the concrete crews are out that way. I mean, there's signs. I think you've probably seen the signs of them out there. So we gotta let that cure out, and then we can get moving. So
okay, great, thanks.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. If you have more questions, please let me know.
Fantastic. Well, we're moving right along here. And thank you everyone for being accommodating to have this early meeting. I know it was off schedule, but because of CML last week, we had to move it to today. So thank you for being very flexible. Our next TAPS meeting will be on Thursday, the July 18th at 1 p.m. at our regularly scheduled time. So with that said, everyone, thank you so much for your participation, and everybody have a spectacular day.
Thank you.
Thank you.